Hello everybody, welcome back to Valley of the Mist Block of the Month. I'm Adriane Ritter.
And I'm Shelley McNeely.
And we're here with the January 2023 Block of the Month. So, because it's the new year, we're starting something new this year. And wait, we'll do that in a second.
Okay.
So, Shelley and I went through a lot of thought of what to do. Last year was fun with our improv stars. Teaching it on the video is easy, but I had to write up instructions. And that's hard. And a lot of you people want to know exactly how much fabric. And that's hard when you're improving. Yes. So we're going back to more traditional kind of blocks, but we're still keeping a modern feel to them, okay? So that means we'll have a lot of negative space, which again, this year, we only are using white for that negative space. Right. So, and we had ideas what we were going to do, and we narrowed it down and decided we're going to explore log cabin-like blocks. Now, we are interpreting that very loosely. Right. And so the only requirement was there be a centerpiece that you go around. Yeah. Okay? So you're not necessarily doing a dark and a light side or anything like that. We may, yeah. but it's really that there's a centerpiece to go around. Yeah. And we're going to try to make them look different than you would expect. So you'd go, oh, that's a log cabin type block. Right. So anyway, with that said, let's go over the fabric that we're going to need this year.
For this year, we have this beautiful fabric that's our focus fabric, and it's called Paint Impressions, and it's by Hoffman Fabrics. So, and we will have this for sale at the meeting. So
that's our focus. It'll be small amounts of that in each block just to tie it together for the year. Now, you only need this focus fabric if you are going to be joining in on the contest, kind of like the raffle kind of at the meetings, where for every block you turn in, you get your name in and you can win all the blocks. Now, we're going to have more information about that in the newsletter, but we don't have that all tied down. Right. But we are really trying to encourage participation this year. So look for that in the newsletter. Right. Okay. So what other fabrics do they need?
So this year you're going to need...
wait, I'm going to take my block for this. This is our block that we're going to do this month. I'm going to take that down for a second. Oh. Uh-oh. Okay. I know.
We got sticky and sticky.
Yeah, last year it wasn't until the end where we're like, all right, we have all this white fabric, and these boards are great because they're microfiber, so stuff really sticks to them good, but they're white. So we've put up a yellow microfiber cloth just so you can see. Right. Okay, so here's my focus that she just talked about.
Right. So okay, for this year.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
This year, so the focus, white, and 3 and maybe 4 coordinating colors. No,
we're not going to use 3 necessarily every month. Right. Just have them available.
Right. So just be prepared that it could happen.
And so, like, this is my white for this year. So it's not solid white. Right. It's mainly white. Right. You just want it to read white.
And this is mine.
Okay. And sorry for interrupting you.
That's okay. So that's for this year. So now for this month, which is this block, which is, I don't know if you can tell, it's definitely log cabin-ish, but I don't know if we have a name for it.
No, because we a normal log cabin starts with a square, and we are starting with a hexagon. Hexagon. We tried it with an octagon, and we thought you guys would kill us. Yeah. So yeah, we're at a hexagon, six-sided.
Right. So for this month, you're going to need a 3 3¾ inch to a 4-inch square piece of the focus fabric. So,
I mean, it will change some of. Actually, let me show mine. I started with a 4-inch. Shelley started with a 3 3/4, and so mine's a little bit bigger. But then everything gets bigger,
Yeah.
you know. So if you start with that 4-inch, so just keep that in mind. Okay.
Right. And some of these, well, let me keep going.
Okay.
So with the white, you're going to need a 1.5-inch strip, about 63 inches of it. Now,
because we use that in 2
right
rounds.
Obviously, you're not probably going to have that long, and we're going to be cutting it up into smaller pieces. So
if you have smaller pieces,
just go with it, because that's how I did this one, smaller pieces.
Yeah, I don't think any piece needs to be longer than 10, maybe 12 inches. A lot of them are a lot smaller.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we're going to call one coordinating 1, and that is 2 inches wide by about 33 inches. And again, we're going to be cutting it up. And then coordinating 2, which is 2.25 inches by about 53 inches. That's because it's on the outside edge, so you need more of it. And then also from the white, you're going to need 4 pieces that are 3 inches by 6 inches, and those are for the corners.
Okay, so as you will see when you get this Paint Impressions fabric, it has a lot of very rich colors in it, and it does look pretty busy.
Yeah.
They're paint blobs.
Yeah, it's like you had a paintbrush and you just swatched.
Just a bunch of swatches.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because Shelley and I do not have the same fabrics, but I'm looking at what she has for her, and we're actually doing the same thing. We didn't on our test one, on our one that we did already, but our one that we're going to make today, ours are going to look very similar. Lots of blues, purple, pink, orange, yellow, gold almost yellow in it. So lots of choices.
Colors, yes,
colors.
definitely.
It should be a color that suits just about everybody.
Right.
Okay, so is that enough about?
I think that's it for where to start.
Okay, so our first step this month is we're going to take our focus fabric, and so we're starting with a square. We're not asking you to start with a hexagon, but we're going to make a hexagon. And so whatever size piece you use, to me, the easiest way, and this is not a precise hexagon.
Right.
This is a rough hexagon. It will have 6 sides. That's all I can say.
Right.
And to get those other 2 sides, what we're going to do is have you fold your focus fabric in half, and then you can either mark this, or I did it what I think is like the easy cheater way. I pressed it into fourths. So it's hard to see, but I do have four press marks in here. And then I also press the center just to make it easy. And then I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to cut from, I don't care about the center one on the fold. I want to go from this press mark, the first one in, on either side, down to the middle corner. Okay, so I'll show you. So I just, and you can, if you don't like doing it with a press mark and it's hard to, or if it's hard for you to see, you know, once you press it down, because it flattens out. You can use a little, you're on the back side of the fabric, so just use a chalk marker or something. So I'm just going to cut that off. And then I'm going to go to this side. And I will use my left-handed cutter for that. And now we have a 6-sided figure, 6-sided piece of fabric.
Right.
It's very close to being even sides. And the nice thing about keeping it close, when you're doing this, you're going to have, like for the one I made yesterday, my white is actually a leftover piece. One of these is. And you're going to have triangles. Oh, I don't see the triangles. So you'll have triangles on the end, or I'm sorry, an angled cut on the end after you start making these. The closer these are to the same, the same that angle will stay, and it will help you conserve fabric potentially. Okay, that's the only thing. It's not critical that they're the same. So our first step is going to be to put a round of white around this focus.
Right.
And I don't know if there's any like real big tips. I mean, you're just going to pick an edge and you're going to start. The only thing is that like, and we have done blocks like these in the past, similar, never with a hexagon. You know, you just want to align that to the edge, and because our angle on all of these, the angle, it's kind of hard to see, but the angle's going in. You know, we don't have an out angle. So if you line it up pretty close to just the edge, you should have enough fabric to cover what you need to for that. Right. It's maybe easier to show on our block. So here was my starting one. It ends up being a very little piece. I'll put it at the top. And I added this piece on, and once you add it on, we are gonna add pieces around in a counterclockwise fashion around your block. If that seems wrong to you, then do it clockwise. Just do it the same every round. Don't go switching back and forth.
Right.
And this will be very easy. You'll know when the round's done because you'll have white all around it. It's not like a log cabin where you're doing half and half and you have to keep track of what you're doing. So you're going to add that on, and the only thing I would say is that probably because of the tail of your fabric, you need to cut the back end, because if you're strip piecing, it's easier to have the piece you're adding to on the bottom, you know, and lay your focus fabric. Oh, it's over here. Lay it on top, because then you can see where to start and stop. So I mean, I would sew it kind of like this, you know, on my sewing machine, coming down this way. But so we're going to press always to the new row.
Right.
So say I put that on. Now I need to get this fabric off of here. I'm not going to work on this edge. This is the wrong edge. Are we going clockwise? Or are we going counterclockwise?
Counterclockwise.
I think I went clockwise.
Well, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It really doesn't
matter.
It doesn't matter.
It might be easier. I'll try that this time. Okay. Yeah,
matter.
So you're going to cut off, you need to trim the next edge. That's the one. And you're just going to trim it. You're going to use the edge of the bigger piece, your base piece, that edge, you're going to trim it even with that. And then add the next edge.
Right.
Did I forget anything? Press to the new fabric you just added.
Right.
Even if it's lighter, don't worry about it.
Right. Yes, you need to trim it, so yeah.
Yeah, you can trim that back edge, but you don't need to. You'll eventually trim it at the end.
Yes.
But
when you get to the last piece you're putting on that round.
Right. But you don't have to trim it to each time.
No. If you have a different way you like to lay yours out and make it work, that's fine too, you know, because a lot of people probably know how to do log cabin-ish things.
Right. So I mean, we just don't want you putting on opposite edges. We want you, we want the pieces getting bigger.
Right.
Okay. So.
Right. That is a little bit different because that's.
Yeah, you're going to spiral it.
Right, you're going to spiral it. Yeah, it's a lot easier if you do it that way. Yeah.
Right. Well, you may not think so, but that's what we want you to do.
That's our method.
Right. Okay. So we're going to put on this whole first round and come back, and this block is going to be so easy because all the other rounds are the same until the last. All right. All right. So we'll be back. Okay, we're back, and you know it's us. So of course we changed our mind. We were a little worried that we kind of left you hanging there. So for experienced quilters, yeah, I know you know how to do this, but we do have some new quilters here. Right. So I don't want to leave you hanging. So a couple of things just to back up even another step. You know, as I was up here babbling last time, I realized I did do mine clockwise yesterday, and we're saying do it counterclockwise. So it obviously doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Just if you do clockwise, always do clockwise. If you do counter, always do counter. Okay. And Shelley wanted me to remind you that printed instructions with photos are available on the Valley of the Mist Quilt Guild's website, and you may want to have that.
Yeah, because it's hard to show it on the video.
But I will warn you that the pictures that I took which was of this block when I made it, I was going clockwise. Okay. So we decided to talk about a little bit about the trimming, which is really basic, and once we do it for this round, you'll understand it for everything until we get to the end.
It's really the first cut, and then you know.
Right. Okay. So on my piece, I still have 2 sections to add, and Shelley only has 1. And so on this one, and I'm going clockwise. So this was the piece I just added, and I have some extra hanging off. And I do want to address that right now. As you can see, I used the angle edge. If I put when I have my piece I'm adding on, and I just cut it, if I put the longer edge against the piece, the area I'm adding, I can take advantage of that and not use as much fabric. Shelley doesn't do it that way. She measures, and because she doesn't want this tail hanging off, and she kind of pre-measures each piece as she goes, not ahead of time, as she goes, and just cuts that chunk and uses it. Okay, so now I don't care about this raggedy part here. This will get taken care of later on when I'm adding around to this piece. I care about this edge. And so all I'm going to do is, can I use your little tiny ruler?
Sure.
I'm not going to cut with.
We're on the yellow thing again, but.
Yeah, no, I'm going to hold it up.
Okay.
Okay, so I just care about trimming even with the block that I started with, the piece that I started with. So I'm going to line it up against that, and I'm going to trim this off. And then this will be what I use for the next piece. So I'm going to do that right now. And while I'm doing that, Shelley's going to talk about hers. Now she's at the next spot.
Right, okay. I actually only have 1 more to put on, so it's a little different, because now, ignore this piece at the top, I have to cut off the first one and the one I just added.
Now you may not have that old one if you trimmed.
Right, you might not.
You might not, but you could, and we wanted to show it if you have 2 there.
Right, because I had some pieces I could use, so I used to use those too. So now I just cut up this even with the focus, and then you add that piece on.
You always care about your trimming of what is from the prior, not the prior piece you added on, the prior round. And in this first round, your prior round is your piece of focus fabric.
Right.
So like she said, and I'm going to trim this for her, I'm just going to put the ruler right on that piece of focus fabric. And okay, Shelley actually brought this up. In the next round, we know how big our piece of fabric was. These were, 1.5 inches? And so they should be, when you sew on another piece, they should be about 1 inch wide.
Right.
We don't care. You don't have to make sure what you leave will give you that. You just are going to trim off that edge, because none of our blocks, because we're kind of oh, I'm actually cutting another piece and I do it.
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
Yep.
So here's hers now. But when we improv'd that hexagon, and so it's not a perfect hexagon, and so none of our blocks are going to look exactly the same. And we said you could vary the size of that piece.
Right.
And that's going to make it different. And the real reason why I wanted to not be so precise is when we get to this last point, which we'll be doing later on, where we add on these corners, it's very subjective.
Right.
And our pieces are not going to be the same. There's no way my corners and your corners are going to match up. So we're not going to worry about it at all.
No.
Okay. So now we want you to finish. We showed you this peak. Shelley's going to add on her 1 piece, and she's going to go to her next round. And I'm going to do that. I've got 2 to add on, and I'm going to go to my next round. And now the next round is the same.
Right, and you're
adding, so we're
you'll be starting the next round in the same place you started.
Yeah. Look for your smallest piece.
It should be obvious. It should be obvious.
Yeah, the one you started with, and add the piece of round 2 in that, and that will be your fabric that is 2 inches wide.
Right.
So they're kind of getting bigger.
Right.
Except for your white, it stays the same. Okay, so Your next coordinating fabric is a little bigger than your white, and then you're going to go back to your white, and then your second coordinating fabric is a little bigger than that one. And we are going to come back and have on 2 rings of white and 2 rings of coordinating fabric.
Okay.
And all we'll have left to do is talk about
any issues we found.
Yeah, and the corners.
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, so we have our almost completed blocks.
Right.
And if you took a 12.5-inch ruler at this point, because remember our blocks are always 12.5-inch unfinished, what you're going to end up with. You know, you've got more than 12 inches in some directions. You know, I have
Yes, definitely.
definitely across the width. I have mine turned a different
Right.
way than yours.
Right.
But as you can see, there's spots behind this where we don't have enough. And that's what your pieces of white fabric are. Now, if you haven't cut these, you know, you can possibly get away with smaller pieces.
Right.
We just estimated what you might need. And Shelley's, you might be able to see, needs bigger, because I started with that 4-inch square and she started with 3 3/4.
Right.
Okay, so what I do, and Shelley's going to show how she does it, I look at how I want it, and Shelley likes to remind you, make sure that where you think you're going to do your final cut, that in my version of this, that you have at least 1/4 inch, you know, under the ruler, so that when you sew on the edge, you still have some of that color showing.
Right. Probably a little more than 1/4 inch.
Right, if you can, yeah.
1/2 inch would be ideal.
So now, like right here, I'm going to take a piece of fabric, and I'm going to just I'm going to attach it with a clip right there. I look at it under my ruler, I stick it under there, and I put a clip on, and so then I know when I fold it out, it's going to be right. So I use these little clips, I put the fabric under there, and I do that. And Shelley's going to talk about how she does hers.
Okay, well, I don't want to have to figure out exactly where it goes. So I lay it where I think I'm going to go for my final. And it's because once I do my cutting, it's going to be where the final is. So I try to center it in this thing, but whatever works.
Yeah, your block does not have to be
No.
centered. I mean, you know, your hexagon is not perfect, so it's not going to be
Right.
perfect.
I just kind of guess where I think I'm going to like how it looks. And then I trim like I'm done. And then I see where the corners go, and I just lay the fabric on there and sew it on. And then when I come back after this, I can show you how I finish the final trim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So we're going to come back and we'll have our. So we're going to show 2 more steps. We're going to come back with our white pieces sewn on, but not trimmed.
Right.
And then we'll come back trimmed.
Okay.
Okay.
Blotchies doesn't show as much.
All right. We changed our mind again. I actually finished and trimmed mine, and Shelley is going to show you how hers looks behind, you know, with the ruler.
Yeah, because it's already pre-trimmed, and then I sewed these on. So now all I have to do is trim those corners. Originally I thought, oh, I can just use a 6.5 inch ruler, and you probably can, but I wanted to be more exact. So
What do you mean? How would you use a
Because you
6
could just put it in the corner and trim. You don't need.
Well, okay, so keep that in mind, that depends on how you orient your hexagon.
Right.
Because the hexagon has a pointy edge and a flat edge.
Well, yes.
And you were doing it with this direction where...
Well, I pre-trimmed. Remember, I pre-trimmed the block.
Right.
That I only had to add this. So I knew I only had corners to put on.
Okay.
So, but I want to be perfect.
Right, okay. So and then I do want to mention that I actually used, when I made this block, I had the squares like Shelley put on. Mm-hmm. And when I trimmed it, I had these big triangle pieces left.
Right.
And I actually was able to use 4 of those.
Right.
And so it depends. It really depends on how how you do your final cut of one, whether you can use it on the next.
Because because the 3x6 is very generous.
Right.
Depending upon how yours goes, we want to make sure you have enough.
Right. And if this were later on in the year, and remember, we always say, you know, if your scrap is any size, keep it, because we may use it later on. And if this were later on in the year, we would have triangle scraps that we would suggest you use. But it's the first block of the year, so.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, so that's our first log cabin variation that we're doing, and it's a hexagon log cabin, kind of like a pineapple. Not, you know, that's probably.
Yes, but that's considered a variation of
a pineapple is a variation, but normally on a pineapple you do sides, you do opposites, and they kind of build out in colors. But anyway, so there's our block, and hope you have one for us at not at the January meeting, at the February meeting. That's when these blocks will be due.
Yes.
All right.